Rain streaked the wide glass windows of the high-rise building as Claire dragged the mop across the empty boardroom floor, the smell of lemon cleaner thick in the air. The skyline glimmered outside like a necklace of lights she could never own. She moved slowly, deliberately, because her body ached from the double shift at the diner earlier. Her sneakers were worn so thin you could almost see the outline of her toes. Her hair, once the color of chestnut, was now tied back in a careless knot, strands falling loose as she fought off the fatigue. On her face was a quiet kind of beauty, tired, yes, but resilient, with eyes that had seen too much too young. There was an eviction notice curling at the corner of her apartment door back home. Her fridge had only a bruised apple and 2 slices of bread left. And she'd counted coins at the self-checkout tonight to buy milk for her little boy before rushing here. So why was she here mopping floors at midnight? Because rent didn't wait. She didn't notice the man leaning in the doorway until he spoke. "Late night, huh?" His voice was warm, almost playful, cutting through the silence like a match struck in darkness. Claire startled, gripping the mop handle tighter. Her eyes flicked to him, tall, maybe mid-30s, in dark jeans and a simple black sweater, hair damp like he'd just walked through the rain. Not the usual kind of man wandering into a boardroom at this hour. "Yeah," she muttered, her voice low but steady. "Someone's gotta keep the place clean." He stepped inside casually, hands in pockets, the faintest smile tugging at his mouth. "You look like you could use some help." She almost laughed. Men in polished shoes didn't usually offer to mop floors. "Pretty sure this isn't in your job description," she said, brushing hair from her face with the back of her hand. "Maybe I'm new here," he said with a shrug. "Could use some practice." She studied him. Something about the way he rolled up his sleeves felt. Not like a janitor, not like an office guy either. Too easygoing. Too at ease in a place like this. But he took the mop from her gently, like he actually meant it, and began swiping across the floor with surprising determination. "You don't have to," she started. "Relax," he said lightly. "What's your name?" "Claire." "Nice to meet you, Claire." "I'm Daniel." She nodded, unsure why her pulse had ticked up a notch. Maybe it was because no one had said her name in that tone friendly. Curious in a long while, they worked side by side for a while. Her son's face flashed in her mind, the way his tiny shoes had holes she covered with duct tape, the birthday coming up she couldn't afford a cake for. She bit the inside of her cheek, willing away the lump in her throat. Daniel broke the silence. "You got kids?" "One," she said cautiously. 8 years old. He nodded thoughtfully but didn't pry. Instead, he told a story about spilling coffee on his first day at some job, making her laugh before she caught herself. It felt strange, laughing in this empty building while her life outside was fraying at the edges down at the vending machine. He bought 2 hot chocolates, handing her one without asking. The steam rose between them, softening the sharp corners of the night, but then her phone buzzed. A text from her landlord. "Rent. Tomorrow. Nitrogen monoxide exceptions." Her stomach dropped. She didn't notice Daniel watching her, the way her hand trembled as she slipped the phone back into her pocket. "You okay?" he asked quietly. She forced a smile. "Yeah, just stuff." The storm outside lashed harder against the glass. Hook. Daniel leaned against the counter, eyes on her worn sneakers, the tired set of her shoulders. "You work a lot?" "3 jobs," she admitted before she could stop herself. Something shifted in his expression. He looked like he wanted to say more, but didn't. Instead, he asked almost gently, "You here tomorrow night too?" She hesitated. "Yeah, why?" He gave a small, almost secretive smile. "Maybe I'll see you then." She didn't know that when she walked out into the rain 10 minutes later, clutching her thin coat tighter, Daniel stayed behind in the boardroom, staring at the city lights. Because tomorrow, the new guy would be signing papers as the company's new CEO, and Claire had no idea. The next night, Claire came back with the same duct-tape sneakers and the same weary look. Though she'd fixed her hair a little neater, maybe without meaning to. She told herself it was only because the wind had been calmer today. The truth was, she hadn't stopped thinking about the stranger with the mop and the warm smile. Maybe he wouldn't even show up again. She pushed the cleaning cart into the boardroom and froze. Daniel was already there, leaning against the polished table like he owned the place. Except tonight, there was something different about him. Pressed blazer over that same black sweater. Hair slicked back, phone buzzing in his pocket with the kind of urgency people like her didn't have time for. "Hey," he said. As if this was the most normal thing in the world. "You're early," she said. Picking up the mop again because her hands didn't know what else to do. "Long day," he admitted. Then, after a pause, "I didn't get to tell you last night. I'm actually the new CEO here. Started today." She almost dropped the mop. "You're what?" "CEO Daniel Cole." He gave a half smile. "I didn't want to lead with that while you were working." Felt rude. She stared at him, heartbeat thudding. The CEO of this entire glass and steel empire? And he'd mopped the floor with her like it was nothing? "You okay?" he asked softly. She nodded, but her throat had gone dry. Daniel took a step closer. "Listen, I saw the text last night. Looked like bad news." She stiffened. "It's fine, really." He shook his head. It didn't look fine. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded envelope. "Look, this isn't charity. Call it an advance. For a job if you want one." She blinked. "Job, front desk. Admin work. Daytime hours, benefits, actual weekends off." He slid the envelope onto the table. "If you want it, it's yours. Consider this your first month's pay." Her chest tightened. She wanted to snatch the envelope, to end the constant cycle of rent threats and empty fridges. But pride flared hot in her stomach. "Why would you do this? You don't even know me." He held her gaze steadily. "Maybe I see someone who works harder than most people I know. Someone who deserves a break." She looked down at her cracked phone screen, her shoes with the peeling soles. At home, her son was probably finishing the last slice of bread for dinner. "I can't just," she started, but her voice cracked. "Take it," he said quietly. "It's not a favor. It's a choice, yours." She took the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was enough to cover rent, groceries, maybe even new shoes for her son. Her vision blurred, but she blinked fast, unwilling to cry in front of him. For a moment, the rain outside softened, like the world itself was holding its breath. Daniel smiled faintly. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m. will have the paperwork ready." "Okay," she whispered, almost afraid this would vanish if she spoke too loudly. Later that night, Claire opened her apartment door to her son sitting at the table. Homework spread out under the flickering light bulb. When she handed him a grocery bag, real food this time, not just bread and milk, his small face lit up in a way that made her chest ache. "Where'd you get all this, Mom?" he asked, biting into an apple like it was gold. "Someone helped us," she said softly. "Someone kind." The next morning, she walked into the building in her best thrift store blouse, hair brushed, shoulders back. For the first time in years, she felt like the ground under her feet wasn't crumbling. Daniel met her in the lobby, that same warm smile on his face, but today he looked every bit the CEO. "You ready?" he asked. She nodded. As the elevator doors closed, she realized her life had turned on something as small as a mop on a rainy night, and one person who bothered to notice, because sometimes the tiniest kindness doesn't just patch a moment. It reroutes an entire future.